Welcome back to the RMB News Report. I've received several email communications from Cynthia in London, England, writes, I think aliens have already infiltrated our government at the highest levels, and even in the lower areas throughout our government, and are conditioning and influencing our population through the educational systems on all levels. And Keith in Vancouver, BC, Canada, writes, I wonder if the anti-gun influence in our society is designed to render us all helpless against the aliens when it does finally become obvious to everyone that not only are they here, but that they are able to pass themselves off as human beings. But by the time we, the populace, realize their deceptions, it will be too late for us to fight, since we have been forced to disarm ourselves, as in most European countries and in my home country of Canada. Well, this brings up a very good point, and it's certainly worth considering. Both of those points are excellent. Cynthia in London brings up the point of government infiltration by aliens on all levels. Well, that's not too hard to understand, or at least entertain the thought, because we have a president elected into office in the United States that had refused to disclose any information about himself, his college transcripts, his birth records, his high school records, anything at all he had refused to disclose, which kind of threw up a red flag for me, because if a person is running for office and wants to serve, be a government employee, a servant of the people, surely the people have a right to scrutinize their college transcripts, their high school records, their bar exam, if they were a lawyer previous to government employment. Certainly all that would be reasonable to view, to form your opinion as to whether you actually want to vote for this guy or not. So, my point there being is it would be fairly easy for aliens, if they could pass themselves off as being human, to infiltrate at whatever level of government they wanted to. All they would have to do is have enough money and to buy political power, and as we know, buying political influence in the United States, as in most countries, is not too difficult. You just need money. And that individual would have to be able to put on a good show. Well, we've seen that is the case. So I would have to, with Cynthia in London, I would have to say that's well worth entertaining the thought. Excellent question, Cynthia. Keith in Vancouver, you also bring up a very good point about the anti-gun influence, because, as we know, and I don't mean to turn this show into a political discussion, but it's an interesting connection with the alien influence, or the alien invasion, that many people have talked about. Consider that if you were aliens preparing to take over this country and harvest human beings as food, as a food source, you would first want those humans to be totally disarmed. Why sacrifice the lives of some of your invasion force if you can spend 20 years or 40 years trying to place ideas in the mind of the populace about the evils of gun ownership? We see how successful that has been in most European countries. Right now in England, if you would actually put forth the proposition that people should be able to own firearms, even AK-47s and AR-15s, if for no other reason, simply because they have a right, a God-given right, in addition to, in the United States, a constitutional right. But if you can influence subtly over many years to the point to where people have begun to disassociate their right to own and possess a firearm. Yes, it again, that proposition is well worth entertaining. If you can create a mentality within the population of an anti-gun mentality, then hey, everybody's willing to give up their arms and ammunition for what? A safe society? Are the police going to protect you? Is the military going to protect you? The government going to protect you? What if all those organizations have already been infiltrated by aliens preparing for an invasion of this country or this world? Now, there was also a movie produced in 2002 in which the leading star was Mel Gibson. And if you have not seen the movie, it's called Signs. And the movie begins with crop circles being discovered in farmland. And Mel Gibson is apparently the farmer. Now, the film was written and directed by, and if I mispronounce this, I apologize in advance, but it was written and directed by M. Night Shyamalan. And the movie presents the hypothesis that aliens were not here for friendly purposes, but were here to harvest humans as a food source, the same as we look upon cattle as a food source. The aliens were here to harvest us as food sources. It's a frightening proposition to entertain, but it's, if you consider that aliens coming to this civilization, this world of ours, where did we get the idea that they were here to bring us intellectual enlightenment or, spiritual guidance? They may have been created by the same God that created us, but the American Indians were also created by the same God as that the Europeans were created by. It did not prevent the Europeans from coming over and just conquering the American continent, and neither did it instow in the American Indians the brutality and barbarianism that they fought against the Europeans. So all that should be taken into consideration. Personally, I don't think that they're here for friendly purposes. I just don't see that. For 1,000 or 2,000 years, there have been, at least that we know of in recorded history, we can see old paintings from the 3rd century Byzantine Empire in which they were painting beautiful pictures, and actually in some of those pictures was unknown objects in the sky, and the people on the ground were actually pointing up to those particular objects. So the aliens, I think, have been coming here for a very long time. Is it reasonable to believe that perhaps they have infiltrated government on all levels? That perhaps they are able to pass themselves off as being just one of the humans inhabiting this planet? Sure. That is very likely and very possible. And what better reason would the government have to disarm a population than to subtly, over many years, brainwash the population into thinking that they really don't need guns? Because the biggest argument about gun ownership that I've heard from politicians is, why do you need guns? You don't need that AK-47 to protect yourself. Well, the reason we need that AK-47 is simply because the Constitution of the United States says that we own it, that we are entitled to it. So you see the anti-gun influence, subtle influence in our society. And like I said, I did not intend to bring this into a political arena. But I appreciate Cynthia from London and Keith from Vancouver and their email communication. So I want to thank you for tuning in to the RMB News Report radio broadcast for the evening. And I want to thank my producer, Landra McFarlane, out of New York, and also our international coordinator, Marilyn Cohen, also out of New York. And we are currently broadcasting out of our studio in Cincinnati, Ohio, but the broadcast goes out by way of satellite link and also internet. And from my understanding, we have subscribers and listeners in 81 countries worldwide. Now, the actual number of cities, I have no way of knowing. The producer and international coordinator would know that, but we are broadcast to 81 countries worldwide, and we thank you for tuning in with us this evening, and we look forward to having you again tomorrow evening, same time. This is Randall Bundy, your host, with the RMB News Report.